Yo, man. Welcome back to episode 9 of For the Love of the Game. As always, if you're watching this video or if you're a subscriber to this channel, be sure to join my community on Twitter, Enter Only If You Love Sports. I'll have the link in the description so y'all can go ahead and do that and we could grow. We talk basketball, all things football, a little bit of life, you know what I'm saying? But it's just chatting it up with the guys. So if you're watching this video, do that right now. You can join in there and be a part of our everyday talk. Now, finals talk, you know what I mean? We've had third quarter runs. We've had fourth quarter runs. We've had teams shoot the lights out. And then we've had teams not shoot at all. You know what I mean? So, tell the 2 games, series is tied 1-1. All that next. All right, man. We are fresh off of game 2. You know what I mean? Like, this is being recorded Sunday night after game 2 just went off. Y'all will see this Monday morning. But I wanted to make an emergency game 1 video, right? Warriors were up, playing well. Everything was going their way. And then they fold. Boston goes on their run. We know the story, right? But I was just like, hold off. I was just like, hold off and just stick to the schedule and let everything go out. So, but we're gonna start at game 1, right? So, game 1 of the finals, right? Jitters. You can see it from guys maybe like Klay Thompson, maybe like Jason Tatum, maybe even a guy like Jordan Poole, right? Who didn't come out and play his best either game 1. But the Warriors are up basically the whole game. Boston makes a run, 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left in that game. They go on to like a 16-0 run on the Golden State Warriors. Still home court. Al Horford comes up big with threes and steals. Jaylen Brown started the run with I think like 10 in the fourth or something like that. Really had a strong third quarter too. So there's a tale of 2 sides, right? If you're the Warriors right now, you seen Draymond's quote. He said, Marcus Smart, Peyton Pritchard, and Al Horford were 15 for 23. And he just said 15 for 23 from those guys will be fine. He also came out and said, we pretty much dominated the first 41 to 42 minutes of that game in that they basically just let it slip, So Draymond didn't have any worrisome, it didn't seem like he was worried about anything. But that's the thing about basketball. If you're the Warriors, you look at that game and you say, we let that slip, right? And then if you're the Celtics, you say, because they said it in the locker room, Jaylen Brown said it, Grant Williams said it, stay with it. It's going to be ugly. Stay with it, keep playing hard, keep playing the right way, and eventually things will start to work in your favor. 2 different mindsets leaving game 1, right? But I do think for me, I'm going to have to go, as much as Boston played great defense, as much as they went on a run and made big shots every single chance they got, I think it was also a lot of the Warriors collapsing, right? A lot of the Warriors folding because the Warriors are a dynamic team and they have a dynamic offense. So therefore, for them to have that and to be usually when a team goes on a 16-0 run, the Warriors are involved. It's the Warriors making the 16-0 run against another team. There's not many teams who come out and put up 16 straight on Golden State and stop them from scoring at all. It wasn't like a 16-5 run. At one point, it was a 16-0 run. So I think when you look at that, right, you just factor in that the Warriors, for whatever happened in that 5 to 4 minutes, it was the worst time to go cold. It was the worst time to shoot some of the shots that they were shooting. And I think you could tip your hat to how many times are the Warriors going to go on a scoreless run, right? A scoreless drought where they go 4 to 5 minutes without getting a basket. That doesn't happen often. Now, you flip it to the other side. Boston had the advantage, right? We know that when Steph Curry's on the floor, when Jordan Poole's on the floor, there are defensive mismatches, right? So a lot of what happened, the Celtics had most of their threes are wide open. A lot of their threes in the fourth quarter were wide open. A lot of Al Horford's threes were wide open. A lot of Marcus Smart threes were wide open. But the reason for that is Jason Tatum did not play his best game, as we know now. He did not play his best game, right? He was 3 for 17. He had 13 assists, though, to go with the 12 points. That's fine. But the reason why it didn't matter so much in game 1 is because he's kicking it to wide open shooters, right? So either way it goes, Boston, in a way, has the advantage. They have the advantage on defense because of their ability to play 1 through 5 and switch 1 through 5. And I'll get to that a little later, but they have the advantage on defense. And then game one, they also had the advantage on offense because when Tatum or Brown was smart would get by Steph or Jordan Poole, they could kick to open shooters in the corner or just open shooters on the court, period, and they were knocking them down all in game one. So the dynamic of game one was shifted. And if you really look at it, I mean, the quarters were split, right? Warriors win 2 quarters and they lose 2 quarters. They win the first one by 4. They lose the second quarter by 6. They win the third quarter by 14, right? When the Warriors have had this dynasty, it's always been the third quarter that separates them and sends them over the top and kind of elevates them to, walk into the fourth and go home with a win, right? They went to that fourth quarter up 12 points. They were then outscored by the Boston Celtics 40-16. So they went into the fourth quarter by up 12, and then I think they lost by 12 or so. First team in the finals to be up double digits going into the fourth quarter, and then to lose by double digits. So, I mean, really thoroughly just a meltdown, right? And when you look at it, though, there are reasons, right? You can really put a finger on the reasons why the Warriors didn't play well. You got 21 from Steph in the first quarter, but he finished with 34, right? Everyone wants to blame it on the minutes. Maybe it's the minutes he's playing. Maybe it was this and that. But those are the minutes he's always played. Game 2, we did see it switch a little bit. I feel like I didn't see Steph on the bench for quite as long spurts, right? I feel like they were like sitting him down 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5, and then getting him back in. Now, Boston also wasn't able to make that run in the second half. First half was very close to game 2, but that's other news. I don't need to get there. What we need to talk about is Klay Thompson, because there are certain things that need to happen if the Warriors want to win this series. I think game 2 was an amazing step. I think they cracked the code in a way, but Klay Thompson in this series is gonna be very hard for him, right? Me personally, I think Klay Thompson, priority wise, should shift down this series. And reason one being, I mentioned earlier, the Celtics can switch 1 through 5, right? They have great defenders at every position on the floor. So for a guy like Klay Thompson who thrives off catch and shoot, he's not really a guy who gets the ball and creates for himself. When you got a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, a Grant Williams, a Marcus Smart, Peyton Pritchard, guys who you can stick on Klay and just say, hey, chase him around. We're switching the screens. We're doing this and that. But stay with him right there and make sure he doesn't get any clean looks on the catch and shoot. That's a recipe for success, because game 1, Klay Thompson had 15 points. He had no assists and no rebounds, and he was 6 for 14. So you make a guy who doesn't normally create for himself off the dribble against elite defenders. In this series is not one that will go Klay Thompson's way. Game 2, he was 4 for 19. So game 1, he goes 6 for 14. Game 2, he goes 4 for 19. And that's because they're pushing him off that three-point line, making him create for himself, making him take difficult pull-up jump shots and in another variety of shots, right? Things that Klay Thompson doesn't normally do. What needs to happen for the Warriors, best case scenario for the Warriors and for Klay Thompson is that he just gets back in that mode where he's living and thriving off catch and shoots. I know that he did a lot of work in his 2-year absence of him probably getting off the dribble and working off the dribble, because we've seen Klay go off the dribble at a super high rate this year, right? But I think it needs to be more of get back to being a catch and shoot sniper. And we've seen it a couple times tonight, but just a couple. But as soon as that ball comes, just be ready to shoot it, because the on-ball pressure that Boston is able to put on Klay is a lot. And Klay, like I said already, is not a guy who goes off the dribble a ton of times. He's not a guy who is going to break you down and shoot a step back 3, right? He's a guy that once he hits enough catch and shoots, he's able to pump fake you, maybe get a dribble pull up, let you fly by, maybe go to the basket. But that's all created off the catch and shoot. Boston is limiting his catch and shoots. That's why we're seeing 6 for 14s and 4 for 19s from Klay Thompson. So like I just said, the pecking order for the Warriors has to change, right? It usually goes Steph, Klay, Poole, and Wiggs are borderline, Dre, Loon. That's just usually just how it goes. Otto Porter gets some burn. Gary Payton gets some burn, right? But this series in particular, it needs to go Steph, and then your 2 and 3 can be interchangeable with Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Right, because those are guys who can create off the dribble, put constant pressure on the Boston Celtics defense, right? And that's what you need. Because one thing that I have found is that I don't think the Celtics can guard Steph Curry. I really don't. And Steph Curry, right, We know he's missing that one trophy, that Finals MVP to add to his already great resume. But Steph Curry is a superstar, and he's one of those superstars like a LeBron James, like a Tim Duncan, like a Kobe, like a Kawhi. Um, just trying to think of guys you can get on their back, and he can take you to a championship with guys playing subpar. A lot of people don't think that, but Steph Curry, as we've seen in these first two games, he's super aggressive, and he hasn't done it with much help. In fact, game two where they won, statistically on the stat sheet, he had less help than he did in game one, right? So game one, he got nice production from Wiggins, and he didn't get anything after that. But by committee, they all played, and they just folded late. But Steph is the type of guy, and he's playing on that kind of level to where you give him some guys who are going to play hard and know what they need to do, he can carry the offensive load. So when you look, Jordan Poole had 9 points in 25 minutes, game one, and you think they lose that game in a 4-minute stretch. You know what I mean? So when you really look at things like that, game one, the Warriors flat out failed Steph. Draymond said it himself on his podcast. He held himself to a higher standard, saying that he should have came out and matched Steph's intensity and his aggressiveness, right? So game one, they failed Steph. Steph came out, he had 34, like I mentioned, 21 in the first quarter. As the defense started to really gauge Steph and start to figure out how they want to guard him, that is when guys like Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole and Otto Porter and Draymond, Wiggs, all those guys should have stepped up and relieved some of the pressure. Game one, I also had questions about Draymond, right, about him being aggressive enough or not being aggressive enough and what that means for the Boston Celtics defense. Because the Boston Celtics defense has cracked the code, right? They really found a way to cheat the system in a way. Because what they do is, imagine this defensive lineup. Both the Jays, so Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, and Robert Williams. Al Horford is on the guy who can score more. Robert Williams takes the guy who's out there and he's not the biggest offensive threat, and Robert Williams floats. Robert Williams already 6'11". He's already a athletic big man with a long wingspan. The Time Lord is what they call him. He's second in the postseason in blocks. So they put him on like Draymond, a guy who's not the most aggressive offensively, and he wanders around and he gets all these blocks and he does all this. So the counter for that is either when Draymond gets it, they go right into a dribble handoff, or Draymond has to look at the rim and be a little more aggressive, which game two, slightly better, right? I don't know if he took a three tonight. I can't really remember, but the way he played was just overall better. And we'll get to Draymond a little later, so I'm not going to do that now. But if Draymond is not aggressive and at least taking a three, him going 2 for 5 is what the Warriors need to win this series. 2 for 5 is great. 2 for 6 is fine for Draymond Green, right? Because all you need is to know that it's the NBA Finals, and Draymond just needs to hit enough so then that the Celtics are like, okay, well, we can't just literally let Draymond shoot. Then, that's one less guy Steph and Poole and Wiggs all have to worry about. So Draymond's offense, which we know we're not going to get anything crazy from Draymond, but him being aggressive, him looking at the rim, him, at least taking floaters. When he does dribble handoff, he chooses to keep it sometimes. All of those things are going to play a factor in the Warriors being able to like really muster up some offense and keep the Celtics honest on defense. Now, with that being said, we did a lot of talk about the Warriors. Let's flip to the Celtics game one. Because I told you how the Warriors feel. They felt like they won the whole game and they squandered the opportunity. But I touched on Boston too, and the fact that it doesn't get any much better, for Boston than this. Game one on the road, you're down the whole game, right? So that already gives you that gritty feel, that NBA Finals feel. You're down the whole game, and you make a run that wins you the game. That, just like that, in that matter of 4 to 5 minutes, their confidence goes way up for the whole remainder of the series, right? Because they know game one, they came out, smacked the Warriors in the mouth. And they have 3 guys, really 4. Marcus Smart had 18. But 3 guys have 20 points, and not one of them were Jason Tatum. So you got Al Horford with 26. He missed 3 total shots, 2 threes. Al Horford was big in that fourth quarter. Al Horford, let me not breeze by Al Horford. Al Horford deserves a little moment. He deserves some flowers for real. This whole postseason, he's been amazing, right? Battles with Giannis. What he was able to do on Kyrie and KD against Brooklyn. His series against Miami. And then game one of the finals, he comes out, he has 26. and he has the most threes in anybody's final debut. I would have to pull up the exact numbers, but I bet you Al is anywhere from like, I think he's averaging a double-double in the postseason. Don't quote me on it, but I wouldn't be surprised. And then you got Jaylen Brown, the second leading scorer with 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Right. I made a social media post, and it got a lot of attention. But I was basically saying that whenever there's a duo like Batman and Robin, in a way, just stay with me here, but in a way, Robin is more important than Batman, right? Because when Batman shows up, LeBron James with D Wade, LeBron James with Kyrie Irving, Steph and Klay, in this case Tatum and Brown, right? Tatum being Batman. When he shows up, you kind of know what you're gonna get from Jason Tatum. You know that, or from Batman himself, from LeBron, from a Kawhi Leonard. You know what you're gonna get from that first option. The thing is, if the first option does all the heavy lifting, in the second option, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade, Klay Thompson, all of those guys, right, who kind of play second fiddle, if those guys don't show up and help the number one guy who's already, putting the team on his back and doing everything, you can't win. So Robin is just as important as Batman, right? Jaylen Brown is just as important in this series as Jason Tatum is. In this game, he has 24, 7, and 5. He does the heavy lifting. You get 21 from Derek White. And then you go to Jason Tatum, who I mentioned earlier, had 13 points, 3 for 17 shooting, but he had 12 assists, and he had the third highest plus minus on the team, right? Jason Tatum, 23, 24-year-old dude, finals debut, shoots terrible, right? Comes out, he wasn't, at a certain point, he kind of stopped being aggressive. He was 3 for 17, but he has 12 assists and has the third highest plus minus on the team. That's basketball, right? That is not caring about the stats, but finding a way to win. That is basketball. That's what basketball is about, So I want to just tip my cap to JT right there. He played older than a 24-year-old with a struggling shot. And then I mentioned earlier, 16 for 23 from Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White. The Warriors' plan is to get the ball out of Jason Tatum's hands, make other guys beat you. But it's hard to win a game when you got 3 guys who shoot 16 for 23, and they're not guys who are typically going to shoot 16 for 23. That's what Draymond was saying about they can be fine with that. But before we head to game 2, game 1 just really let me notice that, or really put me on to the fact that Boston is in every game because they can defend 1 through 5, right? On any other team, if Steph Curry comes out, hits 6 threes, and has 21 in the first quarter, that team is done, right? That team they would roll over. They wouldn't know how to react. Boston, you see Marcus Smart leading the huddle. Boston locks in on defense. And once they were able to neutralize Steph, because he only scored 13 more points in the rest of the 3 quarters, once you're able to neutralize Steph, they can guard everyone else one-on-one. Steph Curry is the problem for the Boston Celtics. And can the Boston Celtics defend Steph one-on-one? That's yet to be seen. But through 2 games, no. There's still a lot of drop coverage. I don't know. The drop coverage is really shocking to me. But let's go to game 2. Right? So, game 2, the Warriors come out exactly the way Draymond wanted, right? I mentioned earlier that Draymond was mad at himself and a little bit of the other guys for not helping Steph out. Steph, again, got off to another hot start. And it was much like this game was flipped in the first quarter. For game 1, the Warriors come out to a hot start. The Celtics just hang on. They end the quarter down 4. The Warriors in this first quarter missed tons of layups at the rim. They had some sloppy turnovers. They had a couple other things not go their way. But I think they either in the first tied or they're up 2. So it was just it was switched, right? But from the very beginning, I tweeted, I texted all home, I said this is going to be light work for Golden State. Because it could seem crazy, but I seen off the tie-up, first play, Draymond and Al Horford. And then I seen a couple defensive possessions and a couple defensive rebounds and how everybody was crashing the glass. I seen that and I said, this game is different because I feel like the Warriors did lose that game in the final 4 minutes. I feel like they did control that whole game, and then, like I said, they just folded. So this one, when they came out and they were ready and they were amped up, and I seen the intensity was high, and I know they got championship DNA, And I just knew that eventually, that the Warriors would draw separation in this game. Um, Steph does it again. He had 29, and he had a lot of help, but it didn't pop up in the box score. Right, game one, he may not have had the most help, but the numbers look good. This game, the next leading scorer was Jordan Poole, and he had 17. But Jordan Poole was also out there for a lot of the chump change minutes. He had a lot of threes late in the game, but he didn't have 17 the whole time, like during valuable minutes. But you had Kevon Looney, right? I think they really put an emphasis on getting Kevon Looney involved because they were just helping off of him. So being able to penetrate the lane and then give dump offs to Kevon Looney, who was in the dunker spot, I think that helped. Draymond, like I said, not having the best game. What do we expect, though? He's not going to have the best game statistically, but what he does, it doesn't show up in the stat sheet. He came out, he was aggressive. He's drawing fouls on Grant Williams, calling him a bozo. He's getting it in Jaylen Brown's face. He's getting it in Jason Tatum's face. And these are guys that he praises. These are guys he messed with. There's a clip of Jaylen Brown, messing with Draymond, and he starts laughing. And you can see Draymond didn't crack a smile, right? And those are his homies. You can see him and Tatum getting it on, right? And he praises Tatum all the time. But you see, that's Draymond's job. It's not going to show up in the stat sheet, but his job is to come out, set the tone, know that, hey, y'all can do it on offense. I'm going to do it on defense, and I'm going to let everybody know that I'm here. Andrew Wiggins crashing the offensive glass, right? Andrew Wiggins needs to be that second guy who can create for himself, be aggressive, and play defense. So, the rebounds, and especially offensive rebounds, that's just another plus for the Warriors. And last is should Draymond have been ejected? It's a little scuffle with Jaylen Brown. No, he shouldn't have been ejected, right? I'm interested to hear what people want to say, but I actually believe that Draymond doesn't do that bad of things, and he gets punished for it because of his previous experiences, right? That was nothing. In fact, he fouled Jaylen Brown. He had his foot on him when he fell. Jaylen Brown, had a little problem with that, told him, get off. Draymond shoved him in the back, and he said, you ain't got to do that. He said, don't do that. Like saying he was probably gonna move his foot. Don't knock his foot off. Jaylen Brown's the one who got up and was hostile with Dre. I would hate to see Draymond get ejected. Also, though, Draymond will never get ejected from another finals game because he got ejected game 5 against Cleveland, and that could have potentially shaped the rest of that series. So I don't think they're ever going to eject him again because they did it, and it could have cost the Warriors a ring more so. So last thing before I get off Golden State is I just want to really put the emphasis on Klay Thompson, man. I seen Stephen A say he's putting out a missing persons report on Klay. I don't know. Klay Thompson's Klay Thompson. I'm not doubting him, but what I am saying is he's going to have more off games than he has on games, right? Because of the way the defense can play him and what the defense can do. He'll be off more than he'll be on. So it might not be as bad as 6 for 14 or 4 for 19, but 2 games I got him shooting at about 50% or higher, and that's due to Boston's defense. Now, I mentioned earlier in game 1 when the Warriors let off that big run and they leave this game and they're like, it's not that big of a deal. We lost ourselves that game. Boston, although they didn't play well, right, I think they didn't get the benefit of the whistle. This game was very physical, but physical could have been called fouls a couple times for the Boston Celtics. So for the Boston Celtics, you never want to put the game in the refs' hands. But if they wanted to, they could leave this game saying, hey, 1, we didn't get our shots to fall. 2, maybe they didn't play the best defense. But also, they didn't get the benefit of the whistle. They were aggressive. They started getting the whistle late. So if you look at the numbers, it's not that bad. Boston shot 17 free throws. Golden State shot 20. But it wasn't like that until very late in the game where they started calling more fouls for the Celtics. But also you look at Tatum and kind of what I was saying about the Tatum and Brown dynamic. Tatum had 28 on 8 of 19, much better game for him. Or was it? Because he also had a plus minus of 36. He had a negative 36 on the plus minus. And for y'all who don't know, a plus minus is basically how good or bad your team plays with you on the floor. So good, you have a plus, minus, you'll have a negative sign. So Tatum had a negative 36. Do you put a lot of stock in the plus minus, or how do y'all feel about that? To me, I do, because it shows how your team plays with you on the floor. Obviously, the Celtics are better with Tatum on the floor, but tonight specifically, although he had 28 and he was 8 for 19, when he was on the floor, they were bad and he was bad, according to the plus minus. But so like I said, Tatum had 28, but you look at this. Jaylen Brown had a good first half, but he finished with 17 points on 17 shots. So that's like what I was saying earlier about if Tatum comes out, he gives you 28 on 8 and 19. Where's Jaylen Brown? Jaylen Brown needs to be at 25 or maybe higher to help complement Tatum. If Jaylen Brown gets 25 in this game, you never know what that starts to open up. That starts to open up other guys and other avenues and, other opportunities for guys to score. With Jaylen Brown struggling, they're able to go all in on Tatum, which a bulk of Tatum's points also came from three. But that's my thing. Jaylen Brown, maybe it just wasn't the Celtics night. Maybe it wasn't the Celtics night. I'm not going to overdo it. The game got away late. But the importance of Jaylen Brown will be big. The importance of actually both of the Robins, Jaylen Brown and Klay. Who can step up first? Jaylen Brown had a great first game. Klay is yet to have a great game. But, it's different. The Warriors aren't banking on Klay Thompson as much as the Celtics are banking on Jaylen Brown. So just about who can step up and make the plays that their team needs. Last thing I want to touch on is Robert Williams had a limp, right? Robert Williams was hurt. Then Marcus Smart fell into him. Robert Williams has been in and out the lineup. We've seen that. It's something I touched on. This defense is a lot better with Robert Williams on the floor. If Robert Williams goes out, I don't know if he will, because the finals, one thing about the finals, it gives you more time to rest. There are more days in between games, and that's for stuff like this. They don't want guys missing games in the finals. But he does have a limp. That meniscus is bothering him. We'll have to keep our eye on that and see if he plays Wednesday. But look, man, that's it for episode 9 of For the Love of the Game, man. As always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment who's going to win this series, how far it'll go. I got Dubs in 7. I got the Warriors. I'm sticking with it. And again, if you're still here, if you're watching this, be sure to join the community, enter only if you love sports, on Twitter. The link will be in the description. I'll see y'all Thursday. Peace.